Hey everyone, this is Eran Stern with another creative tutorial for Artbeats. In this one, I'll show you how to use Artbeats clips in order to distort and compensate a city street, some people, and even light a fire to our headline title. At the end, we should achieve something similar to this. Okay, so I want to show you how to create the end title with the fires and sparks and the distortion and everything. But before doing so, let's quickly walk through the steps I took to prepare this composition, which we are going to work with. So the whole idea here was based around syncing images to music. In order to do so, I first composed the soundtrack using few classic rock guitar samples blended with some modern drums and a touch of electronic beat. All of this together created this amazing 15 seconds introduction. Let's take a listen. Okay, now that we are rocking, we can start working. Wow, that's a strong and meaningful mantra, don't you think? Okay, next step was to add few markers on the layer, and this will help me to animate according to my main music cues. Now we can start to work with the visuals. Our main shot here was a wonderful time-lapse clip of a few skyscrapers with rapid transit trains streak by. This was shot in extremely wide lenses, which gave it this unique fish-eye distortion. I really like this effect and thought it looks very interesting. Therefore, I've decided to make it sort of the theme for this promo. I tried to add the same distortion look to the rest of the elements here as well. In a moment I'll show you the effect I've used, but for now let's start with our main singer lady here and her companion guitar player. I've placed them both in the scene and created also a fake floor shadows using a duplicate of these layers, and on top of them I've also added the CC slant effect, some fast blur, and also the transform effect to control the opacity of the shadow. Now the reason for that was that at the start of this composition I've used hold keyframes for the opacity of the main singer here, just in order to blink it or to blink her according to the beat. Now I'll press on the layer name for a moment so you can freeze the video, and if you need you can write down the clip names that appear in Artbeats library. So if you want you can download a full HD comp and use the same clip to work along with me. Okay, so once I set up this opacity animation, I could take this value from one layer and with a simple expression I just pick whipped it to the other layers, and then those layers will follow the same behavior. However, this introduced a difficulty for the shadow transparency because I couldn't use the layers opacity to control it because it was already being controlled via the expression. So I overwrite it with the transform effect, keeping the same animation, but now I can lower the opacity using this effect. Okay, a long explanation, but worth to be noted if you will encounter a similar situation. Moving on. In order to apply a similar distortion to the rest of my layers here, I've chosen to use the optics compensation effect on this happy couple here, and then I placed keyframes around the sound markers so they both will work or be distorted with the beat. Now this was very fun and creative process. I want to show you a quick preview of what it looks like at this stage. Okay, I really like this Beavis and Butthead look, so I think that I will exaggerate it even further by copying the same effect and placed it on the street background video itself. Now at this point, I felt that some emphasis is needed for the singers, so I've converted them to a 3D layers, then added a point light on top of them, and then in order to make it a little bit more apparent or different from the background, I've added a post-production depth of field effect to the background. I've used the new camera lens blur effect, which is driven here by this blur map layer that determines which areas of the clip will stay in focus and which becomes blurry. Now it all looks good, but like always something was still missing. So to this salad I also added a shape layer that consists of a dashed stroke with no fill. I've converted it to 3D and then placed it under the actors, and in order to boost the lights and once again sync it to the music, I choose to add Trapcode Shine to it and just play with its parameters here. Now let's give it a second watch and see what we have managed to create here. Okay, so this is more or less the stages I've already performed, and now together with you guys I want to add and create our main titles and design it so it will all be ready for prime time broadcast. Okay, so now let's add the title and create the funky fiery animation. I'll return to my project panel here, and here I've got a folder which I've already prepared ahead of time. The name is Artbeats Fire Elements. There are a couple of clips here which will assist us to sell the effect even further or better. And I also have the title animation here. It's not animation, it's just a freeze frame I've rendered using a 3D package. I will double click it just so you can see this is our theme, Rock the Street, and momentarily we will use it. But I just want it to appear maybe here at this point. You see that I already set up a marker from the guitar hero here. So something will something will be actually ejected from this guitar and it will create the title in the air. So what we can do is actually use this clip. Once again, I'm going to double click on it just in order for me to be able to show you what this clip look like. And this is before composite it into the shot. I will just scrub the timeline so you can get a sense of this green fireball smoke, which will serve quite nicely here. So let's just drag it down and maybe time it to start just here at the 1 marker here. Then I'll change the blending mode from normal to add, and we are almost there. So let's try to put it at the spot that we need. This is, I think, will be our first spot. And then let's press P and Shift S just so we can see the position and scale properties. and create keyframe for both of them. Now let's move a little bit to the right, maybe to around this area, around I think 926, where this fireball is at its full glory, and let's just place it over here. And you know what, maybe we will go with screen blending mode here. I think it's a little bit less bright. I think that this is the place where the title should appear, and I might also play with these handles a little bit so we'll have a nicer animation. So this is it basically. We might need to play with the scale of it as well, we will see in a moment. But now we are ready to actually place the title just underneath and start it here at this point. Now we obviously need to scale it, rotate it, and place it at the correct place. So I'm going to do it just using my eyes here. So I'm just going to scale it maybe over here and then press R and maybe just give it a tiny angle. And I think that we need to extend this smoke a little bit more, a little bit further, in order for it to just cover most of the title. Now, I know that scaling beyond 100% is never a recommended choice, but for this blurry smoke footage, it will work great. And actually, Artbeat's footage are in such a good quality, you can get away with a little bit of scaling. So basically, this is our basic move. The smoke cloud is coming out, and then we can see our title. Okay, so now let's work a little bit on the title look itself. It needs to be a little bit more pronounced on the screen, and also we need to create some kind of a convincing transition between those two layers. I'll start by selecting this and going to the layer menu, and then under layer styles, I'll add the outer glow layer style. I'll trim it down. The colors are at the correct neighborhood here, so I'm just going to exaggerate the size here and lower the opacity. I just want a little bit of a glow behind the letters as soon as we will see them. And once again, we might need to play with it a little bit. I'm not sure if we're going to need this from the beginning, so let's just place a keyframe for the opacity here, and here at the beginning we might want to fade it in, so something like this, and then it will fade in maybe a little bit quicker, so something like this. All right, now let's move a little bit here to the right, and I think that we will use the same scheme of optics compensation, the same effect that I already placed on our actors and on the background. So I'm going to place the same effect here and just play with the field of view here, just to give it a little bit of a distortion, maybe something around 70. And I think that I want to scale it maybe further, a little bit further. Yes, this looks to me a little bit more interesting. Now, in order for it to appear in a more easier way, I'm going to use the circle effect. So I'm going to type circle. Let's type the whole word here. Place it underneath. Then I'm going to change the blending mode of the effect to stencil alpha, and this will basically cut a hole in my layer. And now let's see, I think that we can actually start it from maybe from the O. This is the effect, and just going to open it wide here and then time it to the smoke trail here. So maybe here I'm going to place a keyframe for the radius and go to the start of the clip and just close it completely. And of course, in order to appear a little bit more smooth, I'm going to also add a huge amount of feather, just make things go a little bit more smoother. Now, I also want to make sure that we will have some kind of a displacement, a distort effect on the title. So it actually will look like both the title and maybe also our background are being affected from this nice green smoke. To do so, I'm going to use one of my favorite distort effect here in After Effects. Under Stylize, the CC Glass effect. I'm going to apply it to the layer here, and under Surface, I'm going to choose for it to use my movie, which is my smoke movie. And it's not going to work at this stage, and this is due to the reason that the layer of the smoke needs to actually be pre-composed in order for it to be used as a displacement source. So I'm going to select the green smoke layer and then going under layer, pre-compose, and I'm going to move all the attributes here, and let's just call this blast. Now we don't need to open the new composition, and we can also trim it to start from here and make sure to change it once again back to the screen blending mode. Now, if we are going to, let's say, place our current time indicator here, you can already see the effect in action. I'm going to turn off the eye momentarily just for us to be able to concentrate on the effect itself. And let's just choose maybe a higher number for the height. If you feel like it, you can also try to change the softness and the displacement value, but I think that 50 is a good number for this, and you can see that it really has a nice impact on the title. Now, it will be nice if the same effect will also work on our background layer as well. So we can actually copy the CC Glass effect with all its properties, select our background, our street background, and just paste it in. And you can see that we have basically the same distortion. So the blast is actually distorting the background itself, and everything is working together thanks to the pre-comp values that we have here. So the pre-comp is actually almost like a rendered movie in this case. So now we can turn it back on. And of course, if you feel the need, you can also play with these values as well, but I think that we've got it there. Okay, another important touch here is to also add floor shadows to the title itself. So if it will appear here in the screen, makes sense that it will also have a shadow of its own. I'll use the simple method of just selecting my title, Command D or Control D to duplicate another copy. For this copy, I'm going to choose the CC Glass effect and just delete it. And then I'm going to press S in order to see the scale properties. And I'm just going to guess that 55 and 5 will be the correct number. Usually I just divide this value by 10, and this will actually be the shadow on the floor. Now we have to fake the position of it, so I might need to maybe rotate it a little bit and then maybe bring back the lock here and just scale it a little bit back and place it on the floor. Now we don't need to see it in all its glory, so I'm going to add a fast blur effect for it. Just play with the values here until I think this is something which looks good. Maybe also change its blending mode to multiply, press T for the opacity and change it to 50. So we'll have a nice floor shadows here, which will also contribute to the whole effect. So of course you can play with it a little bit more, but I think that we've got it there. Now I want to create some kind of a fiery feel, some kind of maybe leftovers from this explosion on the letters themselves. And to be honest, I didn't really know what I was looking for. So at the Artbeat website, I just tried to type down fire letters, and amazingly enough, I found this nice library of letters that are just have real fire on top of them. And of course you have also digit as well, so if you need, you can of course preview them. And what I did is just looked at my letters and just choose few of the letters, download the full HD clips, and I'm going to come back to After Effects, and in the project panel I have few of them here. So for example, I'm going to double click the first one here, and obviously we can see that this is the C letter. So at this stage, I just take the C letter here, and let's just place it on top of our title animation. Of course, just to let you know, just to make sure that I'm going to show you this, we have the clip itself, and then after it, we have also its matte. So if you want, you can actually use this matte, just divide the clip and, you know, place it one under the other. But in our case, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we're just going to end this over here. So I'm going to Alt, close square bracket. And then as before, I'm going to change the blending mode here to maybe add, just in order to leave myself or to be left just with the fire itself. Now I'm going to press S and let's just scale it. I'm going to guess maybe 25%. And you know what? Maybe even more. And I'm just going to move it on top of the C here. And once again, just scale it and maybe even rotate it as well, just in order for it to be around the letter. It doesn't have to be precise. It just needs to get the feelings that, you know, we have some kind of fire. Now we need to match the colors. So quick solution is just to use the hue and saturation plugin for this. So apply it to the letter here and just start to work your way on the master hue wheel until you get to more or less the same areas of the green. And of course you can degrade the saturation a little bit, or maybe even try different blending modes until you get it right. So I'm going to stick with the add blending mode. I think it's very nice. I'm going to turn off the audio for a moment and create a run preview of the last few stages just to check how it's looking so far. And I think it's really going to be very, very impressive. It's start to look very promising. Maybe we need to nudge this C a little bit to the left so we'll get the fire and then it starts burning. Now from this point onward, basically I have few more of these letters, and double click here, we can see that we've got the E and this is the K, and you get the drift, you get the deal. And this is the S. So let me just do maybe another one. I'm going to select the letter that I already have in place, Command D in order to duplicate it. Now I'm going to press Alt or Option and just replace it with the K. I think that, no, this is the S, so replace it with the S. You might need to work a little bit on the scaling and the rotation for this little guy, but basic principles are the same. Now you can also nudge it a little bit so they won't start exactly at the same time, so a little bit sparks over here and over there. And in order to be a little bit more efficient, I'm going to skip forward in time to the stage where I've already placed everything here and walk you through the last stage of this promo. So here I am, few minutes after, with all of my letters in place, my fiery letters, and in order to make it a little bit more easy, I renamed them so I know exactly which letter is which video is which letter. And this is how it looks. So a little bit of fire around my letters, very, very easy to do. And of course I match the colors as well. I also added this layer, and this is one of the Artbeat's famous explosion. And what I did is just took this video from this point onward, just in order for me to be able to use these nice sparks. So I placed this here at the timeline and colorize it the same way I did with the others. And this is just for a little bit of more realism. So I guess that after all this fire and smoke, there will be a little bit of dust and bits of pieces in the air. So once again, I masked the area that I needed, added a little bit of feather just in order for the borders to not be as obvious. And this little touch added a little bit more of a realism to the shot. Now, after watching it few times, I thought that the title with all of its elements, all the accompanying elements, should move a little bit on the screen just in order for the for it maybe to compensate maybe or distort a little bit better in terms of the extreme fisheye distortion that we have here. So I've created a null object and then parent all the layers to the null and just basically create a simple animation just using the anchor point and the scale. So everything that is parented to it, just go with it to the right, and it just add a little bit, I think, more interest that, you know, the title is not just standing there, it's moving a little bit. And also this makes sure that the title itself is in the border, in the area of the safe title zone. This is something that you always have to double check just before delivery. And that's it basically. This is the final state. Just before we will play it full screen in real time, I'm going to enable these two fiery whoosh effects. There is two fire and gas fire swoosh effect. This will help even further to sell the shot, and it's very important to add these kinds of effects, especially if you are using explosion and stuff like this. So now that we did it, I'm going to move to the beginning of my timeline and play the result for you full screen. And there you have it. A nice combination, I think, of video footage with a little bit of special effects, fire letters and some burst, all combined together and sync to the music to create this final promo. So I hope you learned a few new tricks and now you're ready to walk the street yourself using great stock footage from Artbeats. Until next time we'll meet, this is Eran Stern for Artbeats.com, wishing you a great and creative day. Take care.